Those are not dreams, Gemma. You have a rare gift. The ability to travel into the realm between this world and the next one.
Welcome back, acolytes and astral projectors, to the Complete Guide to Horror Movies podcast. Today we're going into the further to bring you a deep dive review of the 6th entry in the Insidious franchise, aka Insidious Out of the Further. Now, there's been 5 previous installments, 3 of which followed the Dalton family, so that's Insidious 1, 2, and 5, and the other entries are, well, entries to the franchise, let's just say that. Now, this latest film follows Gemma, a young dental hygienist and single mother who is raising her daughter, Maya.
That's my opinion!
The pair live in Gemma's childhood home, where she had a traumatic upbringing as a result of her alleged mentally ill mother, Ingrid, who died from suicide, which Gemma witnessed all the way back in 1999. Cue the Charlie XCX and Troye Sivan song. Now in the modern day, Gemma starts having dreams where she's haunted by ghosts, and both her and Maya notice 3 strange elderly people, aka the people in my background, lurking around their neighborhood. And as viewers, we watch as Gemma tries to unravel this mystery as to why this is happening to her and how she must stop everything before it's too late. But before we dissect this movie, look, I'm going to talk and rant about something that has just been grinding my gears more and more, especially when it comes to the lack of cinema etiquette. So I fully understand that people like to talk and scream during a horror movie. It's part of that fun experience, which I mentioned back in episodes covering Obsession, for example. But just the lack of public respect and everything is just getting so out of hand, where people are casually shining their big fucking halogen light torches when they arrive 45 minutes late to a screening. At this point, just go home. If you're more than 25 minutes late and the movie's already gone past the opening credits, fuck off back home. Stop coming in and interrupting people. And talking wise, I mean, everybody knows that yes, it's okay to talk during a cinema screening, but you should keep it to an acceptable whisper. Anything where it's, hey BP, did you see that scene? Haha. It is so fucking annoying and grating. I don't understand why people keep doing this. Now, why am I bringing this up again? Because yesterday during the 1 p.m. session for Insidious at Parramatta Event Cinemas, there was this really annoying couple in the back right who were hooting and hollering and just being so fucking annoying. And I must stress, this was a couple in their early 20s. It seems to be the younger generation. And I know I'm being like, old man yells at cloud and everything, but fuck me dead. What is going on with people who don't know how to be quiet? Like, just shut the fuck up. Anyway, so BP, I want to start with you. Have you also noticed this surge in, I guess, the lack of cinema etiquette and just plain annoying cunts at the cinema recently?
Yeah, it's been an ongoing issue to the point where I'm so wary of now going to a movie, you know, on the weekend, probably after 5 o'clock of a day. I saw this on a Thursday. What time was it? Like 12:45 on a Thursday at a Hoyt's. And it was actually pretty good. I mean, there were 2 teenage boys down the front thinking they would be, you know, hollering and that, but they were fine. You know, 2 single men that were by themselves, and then there was a couple in front of us. Yeah, like that was a great experience, but I have had some horrible ones. There was one 3 or 4 years ago, I think, when Halloween Ends came out, and it was the premiere in Brisbane, and I was in the second last row, and there was a guy and a girl behind me talking, and then I turned around and I said, can you guys like please stop talking? And then they sort of gave me this like death look, and I felt like saying like, shut the fuck up. Like, yeah, I know it's a premiere, it's free tickets, yeah, that's great, but also like, shut the fuck up. We're here to watch a movie and not hear you talk. But it just seems to be this thing where the loud scenes, you don't hear it, which is great. As soon as it gets quiet, they start talking. And I think like a movie like Insidious, when you're trying to hear things, it makes it really hard, particularly in horror movies in general. But yeah, it's got worse, and I'm very picky about what I want to see and very wary about paying a lot of money for a movie if I'm going to get distracted. Yeah, it sort of put me off in a way. And I would say it's early 20s, but I also say it would be people into their 30s as well. But yeah, it's sort of unpredictable these days. So I tend to try and just get a daytime session if possible, which is really sad. But yeah, yes, to answer your question, yes, I have had issues, but I haven't gone to the movies much this year purely because I'm always worried that it's always one. There's this one person that fucks it up.
Yeah. And to your point as well, like I spoke about this when we did the Obsession episode. I saw it with a massive group of packed people in a theater, but like everyone knows to like scream when it's the scary parts. People know to laugh when it's the funny parts. And generally it was quiet all the way through. So I had a blast being like, oh, this reminds me of when I was a kid and I used to see horror movies with like Coop or Dylan Ryan or even with my mum, etc. And like everyone in the theater was respectful and knew how to be quiet and everything. But then definitely this year alone, there's so many sessions where I just want to turn around and say, shut the fuck up or I'll make you shut the fuck up. Like I get so angry about it. And I was just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, how come these people don't know how to just shut up during the quiet parts of a movie? Yeah, it's Insidious 6. It's not like fucking world class or anything. But if I pay money to go to a movie, I want my money's worth.
Yeah, you're paying money to see something, so shut the fuck up for 2 hours.
Yeah. Coop, what about yourself? I know that Melbourne's different compared to Sydney and Brisbane, but is it different down there or is it along the same lines?
Look, it's been a while since I've sort of dealt with anything particularly egregious at the cinema. I went through a period there where I was just going to the drive-in.
Yes.
You don't have to deal with that shit, and it's so much better. I just haven't done it in ages. I've just been doing shit last minute and like, what's the nearest cinema? I'll just go and do that. I think I mentioned when with Scary Movie 6, there was like, I feel like it's worse when it's either like an annoying couple or like a large group of people. It's like the more people there are, the more likely they are, and like I guess the safer they feel that they can just be a dickhead at the cinema, which is so fucking frustrating. At Scary Movie 6, there was like a couple of like teenagers behind me that were just like saying silly shit, but it wasn't to the point where like I had to say anything. It was like I was just about to turn around and then they shut up and it's like, all right, good. At least you sort of understand, like people seem to understand that line, but I have had issues in the past where like people are just being dickheads. And I like, Justin, that you mentioned that, when people know when to scream and react like the way they should. And it makes me think of that sketch show skit where they kick the guy out of the cinema when he's crying at like the laughing scenes, and like he's laughing at the death torture scene or whatever. And it's like, sorry, you're gonna have to leave. Your reactions are not in line with everybody else's. And like that stuff can be funny though. Like, I think that happened to me when I went and saw Weapons, and there was this girl that I swear she'd never been outside before or seen a movie before, because she was just reacting in the silliest ways to every little thing and overreacting to everything. But thankfully it was amusing, so it wasn't like I wasn't like, shut up, like get out of here. But I've definitely experienced it before. I was the same. I went and saw it in the afternoon on a weekday, so there was literally 4 other people in the cinema for me, and I live further out of the city. So I imagine it would be a lot worse if I was like seeing it in the CBD or something like that. So I've gotten lucky in that regard the last few years, but I've definitely experienced it, and it's a pain in the butt. And unfortunately, I think it's something that we're all going to have to sort of deal with now and again. And it's a shame because it ruins the whole experience, because, there is something kind of, I guess, magical about going to the cinema and seeing a new movie that obviously people don't give a shit about, and it's just willing to just like muck around with their mates and ruin it for everybody else. And it's just like, so it's a frustrating thing. So I completely understand your need to rant about this, because it is not okay.
Oh yes, and to add to this rant as well, I'm gonna do this separately on my personal TikTok thing. I've done like this mind map where it's like the same people who are completely rude at the cinema are the same people who are like rude to delivery drivers, rude to like retail staff, the same people who have bachelorette parties at gay bars, like just tone deaf bullshit. And I'm like, nah, let me not do this for the horror channel. Let me save it for my personal one, because I'm getting too outside the realm of horror stuff. But bringing it back to Insidious, which I keep calling it because I can't call it by its proper title. Let's talk about the opening scene, because I found it very interesting. So I will say I thought the opening scene of Insidious Out of the Further was okay, But I'm really over this trauma concept, and it seems to be Blumhouse's only narrative plot these days because they're always attempting to copy and recreate Hereditary, where everything is trauma. Halloween was trauma. This is trauma. They're gonna do a fucking Backrooms sequel in the future that's probably again all about trauma. Which, I mean, if you watch Backrooms, it is about trauma anyway. But I do think that this was a good introduction to the Gemma character in particular. And yes, it did make me feel old because this was set in 1999 when she was a child. And we
Yeah.
all know that if this movie came out in the 90s, then the young Gemma scene would have taken place in the early 70s. And it was just like, oh, wow, I am really old.
Yeah.
But as we see in that scene, Gemma unfortunately witnesses her mother committing suicide, or for the TikTok generation, unaliving, where it is quite confronting. So, BP, I'll start with you. What did you think about the opening scene?
Honestly, I thought it was probably one of the weaker openings I've seen in an Insidious film. After I did see this one, I just went back to watch the first Insidious, just a bit of it anyway at the start. I didn't have time to watch the whole thing again, but it was just like night and day between the two. I think also, to be honest, with this franchise, I've hit like fatigue, and I hit fatigue at probably number 4.
Yeah.
So sort of seeing this, like, yeah, like I didn't really want to watch this. Like, I'm glad I did for the podcast, but like I'm sort of over this franchise. But I just thought, yeah, like I wasn't really entertained overly. I just thought it was quite weak for what it was. As we'll sort of talk about, it wasn't scary or anything like that. I didn't really sort of have any I guess good sort of responses to this. Yeah, it is what it is, but I just thought generally it was a weak opening.
Yeah, that's more than fair. Coop, how about yourself?
I agree. The opening wasn't particularly anything special, and look, I'm not really an Insidious fan. I feel like they've just been chasing the high of the first one ever since, and they've never managed to do it. And I honestly don't think the first one it was even really like it was okay, but 6 movies out of this, like
Yeah.
they're really beating a dead horse. They were beating a dead horse from 3, I reckon. But yeah, so I went in with a bit of a chip on my shoulder because I up until recently I'd only really seen the first one, and I wasn't like blown away by it, and have spent the last like a couple of weeks catching up on the rest of them, and just oh my god. So I was like, all right, and there was just a part of me that wanted this to be like, all right, well maybe this will, you know, like it's a new, you know, it's Jacob Chase, it's somebody new involved. It's not, you know, Juan or Winnell, you know, doing their sort of formulaic thing that they do once they're, you know, just trying to squeeze as much money out of the franchise as they can. But yeah, the opening scene didn't really give me much hope for the rest of the movie, but I was like, all right, okay, here we go. But yeah, it's compared to other Insidious movies, it's pretty bloody weak in the as far as the the opening goes.
Yeah, that's more than fair. To touch on your points about the other Insidious sequels as well. So, my friend Layla, who I saw this movie with, we were talking about how we absolutely despised Chapter 3, where it was a new story, new characters, etc., where they didn't focus on the Dalton family. And I'm just like, I don't remember anything about that movie, and I've seen it 2 or 3 times. I remember the man who can't breathe, the demon with asthma, just reminds me of myself in my sleep. And I was just like, what else happens in that movie? Like, I couldn't even think of something good that happened in the 4th installment or like the 5th one where it went back to the Dalton family. I'm like, I didn't give a fuck about any of them. Like, okay, they're now divorced and now they're back together. Woo. Like, just wild. But what I will do for our listeners and viewers is I am going to read out the plot summary. So this does spoil the rest of the movie in case you haven't seen it, or maybe it's not screened at a cinema near you. So after the opening scene, we do see that Gemma and her daughter Maya do have, I guess, like a typical happy family structure and everything, and they get along with their neighbors. We're introduced to a few of the neighbor characters, including this one couple where I guess they're like the light comic relief of the movie. And Gemma starts having more and more weird dreams, including one where she's in this like weird pillow fort that turns into like a copycat in the back rooms where she's like going through and she sees faces pop out. And it's interesting because there's some parts in that specific pillow fort or lounge fort, whatever you want to call it, where it could be done really well with suspense, but it just always goes for jump scares that don't actually land properly. And Gemma discovers, as she escapes from the pillow fort, that she has somehow brought back an item from her dream. Her boyfriend Nick, who is a cop, so ACAB, suggests she moves out of the house as it has bad memories of her mother. But Gemma refuses because, trauma and all of that. We've got to keep going with this trauma storyline. At her dental clinic, Gemma treats the elderly man she has seen near her house, and she seems to have a burning hatred for old people. It made me laugh so much that she was berating this very old man for having rotting molars, like back teeth and everything. Like, girl, I'm barely clinging onto my back teeth as is, and I'm in my 30s. So you'd think a dental hygienist would be much more respectful and understanding. But no, Miss Colgate herself just loves berating old people. So in response to her rudeness, he bites her with a second set of teeth that are hiding inside his mouth and are coming across in an x-ray scene that I actually thought was kind of brilliant, but we'll get into that later on. Miss Colgate is teleported to the ghostly realm she's been dreaming about, also known as the Further. As the ghosts prepare to torture her with a dental drill because they too were sick of Miss Colgate's criticisms, she's then saved by Elise Rayner, who instructs Gemma to find her. Even though Elise is clearly right fucking there, but no, she has to go find her in the real world. Following Elise's instructions, Gemma arrives at a tattoo shop owned by a medium named Claire, who is also a very big lover of grapefruit, who communicates with Elise through possession. Elise explains that Gemma is a courier able to enter the Further, where dead souls reside, as we know from the previous 5 movies, while transporting objects between it and the real world. So basically, Claire is like an Uber Eats driver for the astral world, to put it into modern day terms. There is an evil soul named Cyrus, and no, that's not Miley Cyrus, it's just regular Cyrus, Billy Ray Cyrus, has recognized her ability and intends to use her to return to the living. Now, Cyrus is a different villain for the Insidious series. He's not exactly demonic per se. He was human at one point, and he looks like a strange amalgamation of Marilyn Manson, Ozzy Osbourne, a boomer from Wentworth, with a penchant for cheap jewelry from Pushkar in Coffs Harbour, and always has a blindfold. His design just reeks of the classic 90s satanic panic, that terrified conservative... Let me redo that one. His design reeks of the classic 90s satanic panic that terrified conservative parents back in the 90s, and it's just such a weird design, but we'll get into that with Lee's favorite parts. And the 3 elderly people who Gemma and her daughter see from the start of the movie are his acolytes, who support him in the real world. Or is it acolytes?
Acolytes.
Something like that. Claire foresees Maya and Nick being killed and the world overrun by the dead, with a nice callback to one of the smiling ghosts in the first Insidious, using a shotgun to kill generic love interest, Nick. And while in bed with Nick, Gemma accidentally brings home a dead soul, while Maya spots the acolytes now staying in the neighbor's house across the street. Gemma sneaks into the house and discovers videotapes of a cult leader called Cyrus Lamb, aka the CL symbol that's on the rings and the jewelry, who promised to resurrect his followers. Gemma learns that Cyrus plans to use her to bring his followers into the human world. With help from Elise, who is not really in this movie that much, Gemma, Nick, and Claire hatch a plan to stop Marilyn Osborne. Gemma and Elise will lure Cyrus into a red door in the Further and lock him inside while Nick will awaken the acolytes. Gemma enters... Jesus Christ, this is a lot of words. Gemma enters the Further with Elise and discovers Ingrid was also threatened by Billy Ray Cyrus and had killed herself to save Gemma by trapping him with her in the Further. Gemma reconciles with Ingrid, and the group discover Maya has also inherited the same courier ability, which Cyrus and his acolytes already knew in a shocking twist as the bloody portrait for Gemma falls down, revealing Maya was also targeted by the acolytes, with the goal of wearing both her and her mother down through cursed blood rituals or some shit like that they took from the movie together. Nick discovers the acolytes have killed the friendly neighbors and is able to wake two of the three of them up by cutting their sedative gas, but he can't find the third. Cyrus captures Maya and incapacitates Nick, sending him flying into his own police car, ACAB. Cyrus starts to use Maya to bring his followers into the real world, slowly killing her. I don't actually understand how this kills her, but anyway. Gemma returns to protect her, but is overwhelmed by the dead. Elise controls the final acolyte from the Further to rescue Maya, as Cyrus kills all three acolytes in frustration. So, Gemma is cornered by Cyrus, but she manages to transport not only her and the followers, but her entire fucking house into the Further. The resurrected dead, enraged that Cyrus failed to restore them fully, attack and consume him. Gemma says goodbye to Elise and Ingrid before awakening in the real world and reunites with her daughter, generic love interest, and Claire. I mean, why didn't she also just bring her mum back to the real world? Is Ingrid just going to stay in the Further forever instead of moving on? What a fucking awful ending for her. In a mid-credits scene, we go back to the Further, where Cyrus is locked into a room by the key-face demon from the fourth movie and strapped to a dental chair. He's then tortured with a drill by the dentist who attacked Gemma earlier in the Further. There's some things to love and a lot to roll your eyes about with this installment, but I'll give it props for at least trying something new as opposed to continuing the boring Dalton family storyline. So, yeah, I have a lot of different thoughts. Part of me wants to give this movie more praise than it actually deserves for trying something new, like I mentioned before. But again, I just didn't find this really scary. And I mean, this whole series is like, you do give it more leeway for jump scares because this is what the first two movies built its whole scare factor on. But I didn't jump once, and I'm very easy to scare, so I don't understand how when it was like generic jump scare number 15, I was just like, like usually I'd be going fuck, or I'd be freaking out halfway through the movie, but I just didn't find this scary, and I find this honestly very confusing and convoluted. BB, I'll start with you. What are your overall thoughts?
Overall thoughts, I just sort of question why they made this movie because, in my sort of opinion, I just don't think it adds anything, nor does it move a benchmark of any sorts of this franchise. We did have the Dalton family. I didn't mind the Dalton family. I liked sort of number 5. Coming back to, I know a lot of people don't like it, but then when I saw this, I just sort of questioned, like, what's the point of this? And then even like the ending's kind of like, well, what next? So the whole thing I just thought was a waste of time. I think it's been way too soon. Like, it has been enough time since like Insidious, the last one, had come out. It's only been 3 years, which feels like it's been longer. But yeah, like, it's not scary. I thought Lin Shaye herself appearing in it felt off. I don't know how to put it. She felt a bit like a cameo appearance or something, even though she was in it for like a decent amount of time. In the bits that she was in it just felt a bit, I don't know, maybe on the nose. I was trying to think of like the term of Lin Shaye's sort of return. Like, it's great to have her back and I don't mind her, but the thing is, this is a bit like sort of like Paranormal Activity in a way. Like, we've seen the activity like 5 times before, we've come back for a 6th time, like we're just pretty much rehashing the same stuff again. Like, there are a couple cool things which I'll go into later, but I think there's a lot more negatives overall for this movie in general. So like, I sort of came out of it really questioning why this movie was made to start with, because it just didn't really add anything. Like, yeah, it's a new story, but I mean, the characters are pretty meh. I didn't really give a shit about them anyway. Lin Shaye was great when she was there, sure, but yeah, the scares weren't there for me, and sort of just came away really sort of questioning why it was made. So overall, like, I guess if you're an avid fan, watch it, but I think if you didn't watch it, you wouldn't be missing out.
To me, it feels like Blumhouse, the producers, writers, whatever, fed the last 5 years worth of horror movies into ChatGPT and said, create 10 different scare sequences and then they built a narrative around those things. Because there's certain things like the pillow fort or lounge fort, whatever the fuck it is, reminds me so much of the back rooms. And then there's the weird inclusion of the tattoo shop, which had no connection to anything else. And I'm like, did they just take that from Final Destination Bloodlines? Like, why was she a tattoo artist that had no relevance to anyway?
Yeah.
And it just felt disconnected from everything.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was about to say BP again. Coop, what are your thoughts on Insidious?
All right, there's no point anymore. Like, I just don't understand. I'm probably not the right person to ask. I'm so biased against this fucking franchise at this point. But I mean, I get why they made it. It's like, it's like The Conjuring and any offshoot of that. Like, you release one of these movies and they're going to make money. Like, these are horror movies for people that don't really watch horror movies, I feel like. More so The Conjuring, but I think it works in the case for Insidious as well. And like, there was lots of issues that I had with this movie. We'll start with the plot holes. So this whole career thing, right? So they were trying to, I don't know, it seemed like they were trying to say, oh, it's kind of like this new thing, but wasn't in the very first movie with Patrick Wilson's character when he's like stuck in the further, and then weren't a bunch of them just like coming over to the other side anyway, and he wasn't having to touch them one at a time in order to get them to come across. So I thought that was weird that they tried to push that as this like new thing. I mean, it's the title of the movie, Out of the Further, they're finding their way out. But I feel like they kind of did that in the first one. So I was like, this isn't a raised stake at all. And I kind of feel like it kind of insults the intelligence of people that haven't seen the first one. And I don't understand why anyone would go and see this if they haven't seen at least the first one. But anyway, the tattoo artist character, fair enough with the grapefruit. Once you were over at the family's house, pen and paper exists, right? Like, I've never met a tattoo artist that can only do art or draw things on, a human or skin-like canvas. So, I don't know. I feel like the only reason they did that is like, oh, it looks creepier on grapefruit or skin. I was like, what? I was like, there's probably a pen and paper there. You probably don't need to do it that way. So I thought that was annoying. With the sort of backroomsy pillow fort thing, there was one moment in that I thought was kind of cool, and that's where one of the acolytes is just like poking his head around the corner and just like very still, like staring at her. And then she like turned around. I was like, oh God, here we go. She's going to turn back. And he's going to be like right in her face. It's going to be, your generic, jump scare. But then he was still there and he was still scaring, still just staring at her. And I was like, I was like, you know what? I don't mind that. That's kind of like just the stillness of him is just kind of like creepy, just like poking his head around the corner, staring at you. Yeah. And like I've had dreams like that. And so that was kind of like, there was moments of like really interesting, kind of like unnerving, imagery in this, which was quite good, but the rest of it was just your kind of schlocky, formulaic horror movie that we've all seen a million times. I actually really like Amelia Eve. I thought she did a really good job with the material, and she, I don't know why, because she doesn't really look like her, but the way that she acts reminds me of Naomi Watts. I kept thinking that throughout the movie. I'm doing my best not to, shit on child actors. They're kids and they're doing the best they can, but like, it was okay. That's all I'll say. Keep at it, little one. You got this. Give it time. And the kind of big bad in this Cyrus character, who, as you said, is human. I was kind of like, okay, I don't know. It feels like they just keep rewriting new, and it's not the worst villain. I think, you mentioned Insidious 3 before, and that Darth Vader breathy cunt from the third one was probably the worst out of all of them. And in each one, they're like, you know, Lin Shaye has that speech of like, oh no, this is something far more evil and insidious. And it's like, well, clearly they all are, because like, you know, we watched the first one and they made it sound like, oh, this is one of the worst things. And then you sort of, you know, they go in his little lair of horror. And it's like, oh, this is like one of the worst things ever. And then they get to the next movie and they go, oh, this is one of the most insidious things, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, fucking, you know, you're like a fucking gig promoter at this point. This is going to be the most brutal gig you've ever been to. But, you know, talking about, you know, these evil things. And I think what pissed me off the most was probably the ending. Like I literally, and you'll message me, I think it was UBP, like I'll stick around like there's something after. And I didn't read it until after I was like out of there. But literally the moment I saw words up on the screen, I shook my head, I stood up and I walked out of there. Like, didn't even check to see if I had my things. I just immediately left. I was like, yep, cool, done. I am out of here. And it was one of those, I'm surprised they didn't do the classic Blumhouse one last scare thing. And I was kind of happy about that, but I thought like the sappy ending was so fucking stupid. And then it, you know, it zooms in on the mailbox and then the mother's name's there as well. I was like, this sucks. Like, this is so fucking bad.
Yeah.
Probably the most horrifying thing about these movies was the dentist scenes. Not where, you know, they're about to get tortured or whatever, but literally where you're having to watch someone have plaque removed from their teeth. I was like, that's I don't need to see that. I don't need to see that. That's a bit much. Yeah. And yeah, Justin, you mentioned generic love interest. Generic love interest was really bad. Not good at all. And I guess one of the few positives about this is like, you know, like at this point, Lin Shaye's character is pretty like, yeah, all right, we've heard it all before, but like, I'm glad Lin Shaye's still getting paid. Good on her, get your money, girl, get that bag. But yeah, it's like, why are we bothering anymore? And I feel like her being in the further doesn't really make sense with her story arcs throughout the series anyway. You think at this point she would have maybe like moved on or whatever, because she did the whole I'm not in this anymore, and then the whole like, god damn it, I'm back in and I'm helping people, and then like I don't know, like it's just everything kind of seems to be like conveniently written to fart out another one of these fucking movies. And it's just, I don't know, it's just bottom of the barrel mainstream fucking money bait, and I'm just so sick of it. And like the immediate thought when I came out of the cinema was like, please tell me it's going to be years before I have to watch another one of these fucking movies. So yeah, not a lot of those thoughts are in any particular order, but this movie pissed me off. You can put in that quote by CM Punk of like, sorry if I'm a little snippy, but I'm tired, I'm hurt, and I've worked with fucking children. That's what it feels like with this. I'm just like, these fucking movies, done. I'm over it. I can't do it anymore. Anyway, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that's fair. Before we do talk about favorite and least favorite parts, I do have a question for you, Coop, which is, what does your mum think of the Insidious series?
She likes them.
Yeah,
she does like them. And like rewatched all the rewatched the first one and then watched the rest of the Insidious movies, and I think she'd seen most of them. And then like it'll get to the end and she was like, oh, that was a good one, and we'll be like, no, it wasn't. And she was gonna come with me, but she wasn't feeling up to it on the day. And like I spoke to her about it, and she was like, oh, how was it? And I was like, oh, well, shit, obviously. And she was like, oh, I'm probably gonna like it then, like, because she's just got a soft spot for it, you know. She's like, oh, you know, it's a bit of fun, and she does the whole like, yeah, but like you do like a horror podcast, so you're like actively critiquing it, and I'm like, yes and no. Like I'm still I'm still actively trying to enjoy it as a movie, and then like I try and think about it afterwards, to sort of go through my thoughts on it. So I was trying to be present, and I did go in being like, all right, you've got like one last chance to like wow me here, and unfortunately it didn't happen. So yeah, but we have different tastes. Like sometimes, we agree on certain things. But Mum just loves a bit of a horror movie, even if it's something maybe a little bit tropey and schlocky like this. She reckons it's a bit of good fun. But like, I don't know. I've just seen too many of these Insidious movies and Conjuring and all that kind of, in my opinion, bottom of the barrel, lowest common denominator horror schlock crap that is kind of infested the genre over the last 10 years. And, from what I can see, I know it's early days yet, but it seems like this one's not doing particularly well at the box office. And that's kind of nice to see because with the horror genre in particular, we've been kind of lucky over the last probably 4 to 5 years of some good shit, new ideas coming out that have sort of changed the game. And it's not just all right, this year's Conjuring movie or this year's Paranormal Activity. And I think it's, as we've mentioned before, I think it's kind of put, production companies like Blumhouse on notice to up their game a little bit. And unfortunately, they did not get the memo with this movie. So,
Yeah. I think your mum and I are very similar when it comes to liking horror movies and disliking some horror movies time to time. But you're absolutely right too about the fact that especially this year alone, the huge success of Insidious, what the fuck? The huge success of Obsession and Backrooms and, YouTuber horror in particular, where it is saying to these established film studios, you can't just repeat the same fucking movie across 7 different entries. Let's try something new. Let's actually make movies scary and good again. So I hope that this does encourage studios to take more notice of that. There's some parts in this one with Insidious that I felt they were trying to do new ideas, but then maybe they were being held back by the film studio. So they would do different cuts of hey, here's a pillow fort scene. And then the film studio were like, no, go back and re-film that, re-edit this so there's a jump scare every 10 seconds, where they may have been originally trying to go for suspense. So I'll talk about that pillow fort scene as one of my favorite scenes, because that image of the very distant face just peeking around the corner was, I mean, it's not super scary, but it is unnerving, where it's just what's going to happen? And then even the one scene where you see the close-up of her and she moves slightly and you see the figure behind her that's really close to her, but she doesn't see it yet. And it's oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? It's building up that tension, and then it just gets ruined by that. And it's oh, well, I was kind of hoping she would turn around and see it so we could see the reaction in one continuous shot, not just it just ruins it with that. There's some other scare sequences that I did enjoy, specifically the dentist one where she takes the mouth x-ray, and I literally just had the mouth x-ray last weekend, so I'm oh, that's accurate. That's how they did my mouth x-ray. And she runs out of the room, and then she goes back in and she sees something, and I'm what is she looking at with the x-ray? And then she keeps doing more x-rays, and you see the dun dun dun. And I actually laughed because I'm oh, he's got delayed adult teeth or something, that as it's coming along with the x-ray. But I thought that was good because I hadn't seen that type of segment before in any other horror movie. And then of course anyone who watched the trailer would know that he has a second set of teeth behind her, so that would have been ruined. But I still thought it was good. Anything to do with the further scenes where she'll wake up and she doesn't realize she's in the further, but she sees smoke on the ground. She's oh no, I'm stuck in the further. I'm if it was me, I'd be oh great, mum's smoking in the house again. So I'm just I can't take this seriously. But I still want to talk about the cinematography and I guess the look and feel of this movie, because to me it feels more closely in line with the original Conjuring movie, the original Insidious films, where it's really great use of light and shadow. Everything looks crisp, especially compared to chapters 3, 4, and 5 in particular, where I really like the look and feel of this movie. There's a few music videos which are using Vista Vision, which is a camera technique and everything, where it looks like 70s and 80s, like high quality film. And I don't know what this was shot with. I don't think it was VistaVision, but it looks like it was shot with like very nice old school cameras as opposed to like everything digital where it's like too washed out, it's too clean, it's too just like boring and generic. So I do think it was a step up, but again, I just wish there were more scares because yeah, there wasn't really anything that got me with this one. I didn't like the overall story. I'm still confused as to what they were trying to explain about with the original mother character, like her killing herself and her being haunted by the demons and everything, or Cyrus, whatever. But then at the end, she's just like, okay, goodbye. And I'm like, you don't even want to spend time with your granddaughter? Like, you don't want to spend time with your actual daughter? Like, is she going to stay in the further? Is she crossing over to the next world? Like, they don't explain everything. I'm not saying you have to spoon feed it to me like every other generic Blumhouse movie. But when they spoon feed you the rest of this movie, but this one doesn't get explained, I'm like, well, what happens? Like, come on. Or is the implication that she's got her name on the mailbox? Is the implication that she's going to exist in the house, but in the further version? Anyway, before I carry on, BP, do you have any favorite parts?
Yeah, you touched on the director Jacob Chase. I just had a quick look on IMDb to see what he'd done previously, but there's nothing really worthy of mentioning. It's all just sort of short films. But yeah, this is actually quite a nice film itself. I think it was well directed. I thought the colors were great. It was just nice to see. It's been so long since I've seen the other Insidious films, and I really should have just watched them more like Coop did, just to sort of have a bit of a background before coming into this, because it's been quite a while to sort of compare. But I did notice straight off the bat that it was a nice film and well directed. One of my favorite scenes was within that sort of, couch, pillow fort, what do you want to call it, scene, which was the shot of Gemma going through the cushions.
Yes.
She's sort of pivoting through, and it's a bit of a point of view thing. And I thought, like, it's weird. I feel like we probably have seen that sort of thing before, maybe not in an Insidious film, but it was like a really cool shot. I really did sort of like that. I thought that was really cool. When I saw the Evil Dead the other week, they actually at the Hoyts that I went to had a 3 or 4 minute extended preview of this film, which was the pillow fort scene all the way up to, so it started where she walked in, crawled in when the ball came out, and then it got up to, I think, where the faces appeared. So I sort of saw that coming. The thing with the faces, it didn't really scare me. I think it's more when the eyes were glistening in the like sort of bouncing off, which I thought was really cool. And then, as Coop said, I think when the camera turns around and then comes back, I was waiting for something to happen, and it didn't. But then I think later on someone was to the left. But anyway, the other scene that I really did like was the dentist scene, which we all sort of talked about. That was a really crisp and detailed scene. I really love, like, on the big screen anyway. It looks great. And the back shot of the camera going out of the mouth, and so you sort of see, his mouth open, sort of that shot I thought was really cool. And then the detail of pulling is it the hair or the string out of the tooth?
Oh yeah, and it breaks. Yeah.
And then the tooth actually breaking, that was like really good. Well, I don't know if it was CGI or whatever, if it was prosthetics or whatever, but that was really cool as well. I did pick up that it was, I forgot that it was filmed in Australia. Then I suspected it was filmed. The streets looked a little too. And
it wasn't just me. Okay. Yeah.
I got something about the white picket fence, and I just thought this looks kind of Melbourne-y or Sydney. So I like that. Australia was part of this, which is cool. We always like that. What else did I like? That was kind of it. You talked about Naomi Watts. I was getting Charlize Theron vibes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the main character. Okay. I was getting like a younger version of her, and I thought Charlize Theron could have been Gemma in this as well. That's kind of really where my positives end with this one. But yeah, I will say, it was nicely directed, and there were a couple like somewhat interesting sort of scenes within this. So
yeah. I'll have to double check on Wikipedia and even IMDb, because I know that this was filmed in Australia. Okay, it says here filmed in Melbourne, Victoria, Dockland Studios.
Yeah.
I thought for some reason it was filmed at It's now called Disney Studios, but at Fox Studios, but nah, it's all fun. There was one scene at the start where she's walking with her daughter out of the school, and the front of the school says something something elementary because that's American. And as they're walking away, it's blurred in the background. I could not read what it said, but it had a very different name on the school building. And I was like, what does that say? It looks like it says like something high school. So I was trying to figure it out, and I'm like, all right, whatever. I'm getting too involved in this. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, if it wasn't for the street scenes, I would automatically assume that this was filmed in somewhere in America, like Atlanta or Los Angeles. But yeah, finding out it's actually in Melbourne, I'm like, yeah,
that's cool.
That makes sense. Coop, what are your favorite parts, if you have any?
Patrick Wilson wasn't in this movie. That was sick. I don't know what it is with him, and I don't even quite understand my disdain for him. But I just think he's just really bland as an actor, and like even when he's crying, scared, upset, angry, I just don't believe it. It's just like it's very similar to how he just regularly is. Anyway. He was in it a little bit with there was stock footage or flashback footage, and I was just like, so close, but he wasn't in the rest of the movie. So that was good. Credits, fantastic. I got to leave. Favorite parts, I've touched on the pillow fort scene. I thought that was really good. BP, I like that you touched on that sort of POV when it's really close up. I thought that that was really well done as well. And of course the dentist scene with the string and the broken tooth was pretty icky. I think it was the only point in the movie where I went, ugh. The direction of the movie and some of the cinematography was pretty impressive. Yeah. But I don't feel like it was anything within the further. And Justin, you mentioned the further's just kind of been, it's just a change in color scheme and some smoke now. That's all it is. And I feel like in the first movie, the further kind of seemed more dreamlike. They didn't really know exactly what it was. But now it's like, further is a place. Walk on through, find whatever you need. But in the first one, it seemed a bit more detached, and part of it's a vision. And then if you're looking at something a certain way, then you're in a different room. But now it's just we're going to go over here. There's a red door over here. There's a red door over here. Just follow the sign and you'll make it. It's just a place now. So I did, that was kind of annoying. But a lot of the outside scenes, particularly in the dentist office, were quite good. I'm gonna steal Justin's one just because I don't have a lot to go on here. Color grading was pretty good. Like I said, I did really enjoy Amelia Eve. I haven't seen her in anything else, but I think she's quite good. I think she did a really, really good job. Beyond that, no idea.
Yeah, no, that's more than fair. I did like some other scenes in this movie where she goes into the neighbor's house, for instance, and she comes across the videotapes, and then Cyrus is talking to her through the TV. That part was weird, but I like the look and feel of that, where it's using VHS tapes to I just love VHS tapes in general because I'm a fucking weirdo, and I was like, oh, I love that. That's cool. I love the look and feel of that. If I don't say this, I know Layla will probably comment a bit you told me you liked that part. When it's the whole twist reveal where they're oh, not only did they target her, they also targeted her daughter, and then the picture falls down, you see that they've used the weird blood ritual or whatever. I was just okay. I'm like, I don't think they needed to show that. They could have done that any other way. Yeah. But then I also think, couldn't they have wasn't that already implied anyway? Because of the connection through the matriarchal timeline? But it was just a bit strange. The dentist scene, there's a lot of things in this which I think rely more on, I guess, scent and the audio. What am I talking about? There's a lot of things in this movie that I think take it to a different level compared to the previous 5 installments. The audio design, it's the squelching noises, it's the like even the scenes where it's like Cyrus using his tongue or the old people and everything, it's like, ugh, when they lick something, you hear the lick, you feel the lick. It's really fucking gross. Even when like they're removing the plaque and everything, you hear the plaque getting removed, and it just makes it more queasy and disgusting. When it comes to smell, it's like all the implied smells with like the giant discarded pile of diapers and everything, or nappies because we're Australian. Like it's more reliance on the senses and like what we would perceive those smells and audio and everything to actually be. So we'll give it props for that. Now, least favorite parts. I won't actually talk that much about it because I feel like you two will have this covered, which would be great. I could do less talking. Again, just the storyline. I didn't like the ending. I didn't like what they did to the overall mother character from the beginning of the movie. I didn't feel there was actually any like joy for her or any justice for her character done. It just seemed to be, hey, you got haunted by a cult leader. Oopsie. Like no sense of justice, nothing. It's just very sad. But I also think this has a lot of studio interference where they were just trying to add a jump scare every 10 seconds and it just wasn't satisfactory. Like, again, I'm easy to scare. I was not scared once. So make of that what you will. BP, what are your least favorite parts?
We touched on earlier the weak opening straight away. That was probably one of the worst in the franchise. I thought the makeup of some of the people in this was rather comical. I feel like I've seen better makeup at like Fright Nights at Movie World, which is saying something because it's pretty.
And that's coming out soon. Get your pre-sale tickets now.
That's not a promo for it. I went to it last year. It's too expensive, and whatever. But yeah, like the mum's, Gemma's mum in the start, that makeup, I don't know, it just looked comical. It was hilarious because I was wondering, like, what the hell is going on here? Yeah, like the main thing with this movie is that it's not scary, and I know it's rated M in Australia, whatever that is in America, PG-13. But we've done quite a few M-rated, horror movies, and they are genuinely scary. Like you think something like The Sixth Sense, we haven't done that yet, but that's like one of them, or like there's quite like various other ones that we've done. What I'm just trying to say is that it's just not a scary movie, and I don't know. I don't know like what was sort of happening here. Why there was just a lack of scares in general. Like that pillow fort scene, I could think I'd just rather laugh than had any emotion towards these faces looking at me. Like I feel like I've just seen that in another film. There was some really bad CGI, particularly at the end of this film with the house, or the house was missing and it was just like a concrete slab of CGI. And my mate, that was with me, he looked at me and he's like, this is a really bad CGI. And I'm like, I think it is really bad CGI or AI. I couldn't work it out actually. And then, so Lin Shaye, look, I like her. It's good to have her back. I just felt like in this entry, I don't know, it just felt a bit like cameo feeling for my liking. I don't know. It was kind of like she was there, but she was only there for a paycheck and then fucked off again. So I just didn't really feel like she had like a whole lot of involvement. I just felt like her appearance wasn't genuine. And like I know she was in it for a bit. It just felt a bit tacked on. That's what I'm trying to say. Coop talked about the grapefruit. So in Scream 5, when old mate is talking about requels and all this shit, and she's got everyone in the room and she's talking about it, I thought that was cringe. I think it was cringe when she had the grapefruit and she was telling like what's going to happen, and it was giving like a preview where the cop was going to be, and I thought, why are we going on about this for 2 minutes? Like it's clearly just filling running time. Like we don't need to go into this elaborate conversation. And she's using the grapefruit and like pushes it through like a door and it lands on a mat or whatever it was, and I just I just thought that was so cringe. Like
when she was talking about that, sorry to interrupt, but anytime she brought up the grapefruit, my mind went to The Simpsons, where Homer's teaching a class about marriage and he's using an orange as an example, and then Groundskeeper Willie is like, if I wanted to see a man eat an orange, I would have taken the orange eating class. And then Hans Moleman is like, the eating of an orange is a lot like a good marriage. And Grandpa Simpson is like, just eat the damn oranges. That's all I could think of. I'm like, why is she so obsessed with grapefruit? We get it. It's easier to tattoo, whatever. I'm like, fuck.
It's just not even like we sell that fruit here, but anyway. The fervor, I mean, look, I don't mind the fervor, but I think everything that's happened in the fervor I've seen in the last 5 films, so nothing was new here. Like we've seen it all before. Whoever was talking, Justin, you said before about Marilyn Osborne, I was getting like Rammstein vibes with the voice, and by the end of it, it just sounded so comical. I'm like, I know this is a person, and I feel bad that they actually probably have, they could have a voice acting sort of gig, but like that voice they used was so bad in itself. And then I guess the thing with this film in general is like watching this film, I didn't gain anything. I didn't sort of like, for me, it has very low replay value at this point. I sort of think, why would I watch this one again? I just don't think it added anything new in itself. I know there'll be diehard fans out there saying, this is an improvement on the last one. I'm like, yeah, that's great, but like it doesn't move the bar forward. It doesn't move anything, with this franchise forward. I prefer the Dalton family. Like I would prefer to see them again than this new story, because I just sort of think, well, what are you going to do now? Like that's my sort of thing. You've put yourself into a corner. Like, what are you going to do? You're just going to do another family now, or another new cast, and have Lin Shaye come back again? But like Coop said, they've got themselves into this corner, and this franchise is clearly tired as it is. I know they were trying to tinker with doing a spin-off with, what's the one that's Sinister? Oh yeah, I think there was like a Sinister Insidious.
Yeah.
So like, sure, you could go down that route, but I think Sinister's a film that I don't think a lot of people have been sort of waiting for another sequel. So maybe that could be the way to go. But yeah, overall, it's quite a sad entry. And I know like number 4 is one of my worst rated ones in this franchise. I'd have to watch them back to back to see if this one's even worse than number 4. But yeah, I just sort of question why this film was made. And it's very average apart from a couple scenes. And it cost 18 million. Yes, and that's the worst thing, as Coop was saying earlier. Horror movies don't cost a lot of money these days, unfortunately, which means they're probably going to get greenlit for another sequel, because it's made 10 million on its opening already, and it only cost 18 million. So they only really need to make 50, and they're pretty good, which it probably will worldwide. So yeah, we'll probably see another one. But yeah, overall, very disappointed. Didn't really add anything to the franchise, and I'd be happy if this took a rest for quite a while.
A rest stop?
Yes.
Coop, what about yourself? Do you have any other least favorite parts?
Any more? Yeah. So I know I mentioned in the positive things about it that Patrick Wilson wasn't in this one. I feel like one of the negative things about this is that Lee Winnell and Angus Sampson's characters weren't in this, because I feel like they kind of always provide a nice little comic relief that's sort of just a bit more levity to the movie. And it would have been nice to see them again and wonder what hairstyle they've got, what hairstyle Angus Sampson's got this time, because I always get a kick out of that. How it's different in every movie. So that was a negative thing. BP, you touched on some bad CGI in this. When the house was missing, I audibly laughed. I thought that was so fucking stupid. I was like, oh, okay, yep, cool. You've moved the whole house into the further, or into fucking Smokeland or Signal. And yeah, I just thought that was ridiculous. I've already mentioned the ending before. That was just so sappy and so bad. I'm trying to think of anything else. I feel like I kind of like covered everything. The volume scares were egregious and pointless. One of them did actually get me, and it was just because like I just started watching. It was in that like really underwhelming opening scene, and that's what pissed me off even more. So none of this is scary. But like the movie had just started, and I had my phone on I think it was on vibrate. I realized I didn't turn it on to silent, and it was like vibrating. I'm like, oh shit, someone's trying to call me. So like I turned the thing off so the vibration would stop. And then just as I looked up, it had that transition where the mum starts running in the house, and I just
Yeah.
went, "Oh fuck!" And then I was just like, "Oh, you bastard!" But then like once that had happened, the rest of the movie, like you can just see them a mile away, like,
Yeah.
and we could go on and on and on. I'll never get off my soapbox about this. Is that volume scares aren't fucking jump scares. Jump scares, you know, you got to build tension, and it's got to actually be something scary and not just something that's loud. Like anyone can walk up to someone when they're not expecting it and go, "Huh." That's not necessarily scary. You're just catching someone like off guard, and it's so fucking lazy. And these movies are so reliant on them. BP, you touched on like the makeup in this. When you saw I don't even remember the name of the. Was there a name for the thing in the first movie? The red and black thing.
The devil thing.
Oh, Darth Maul.
Yeah, let's go with Darth Maul. So Darth Maul popped up again, and that's the worst I've ever seen him look. Holy shit. They had the old lady / dude that dresses like his mother, Norman Bates. Let's call it
Bianca Del
Norman
Rio.
Bates. Yeah, Bianca Del Rio, Norman Bates popped up again, and that's probably the worst I've seen that character look again. I hated that scene where she's in the dentist chair, and then they're just like cutting to all like the different villains that have been or in previous movies. Because I'm like, well, now what you're telling me now is that all those characters ain't shit, because now you've got some human dude who's got a terrible radio voice just controlling them. A human, no less. But all these people, they're just falling into line for this dude. And it was meant to be like see, we're like paying homage to, you know, these previous movies. But all you've done is just buried all of those characters, which I thought was so fucking stupid. And just totally not worth it, because this movie wasn't worth it. And yeah, so I won't go on. I'm getting mad, honestly. So let's leave it at that. No more Insidious movies for a while, please. Just don't. If you need to, give it like 5 years. Have a think about what you want to do.
Yeah.
And you know, something that's actually going to not just be another one, because like I mentioned, after the first one, like obviously at least with Insidious Part 2, you get some continuation with the ending of like bloody Patrick's like character is, you know, the thing is in him, so at least you get some continuation on that. But everything after that is just like prequel, back to the family. Now this is happening. Like they're literally just going, what can we do? How much more can we squeeze out of this? And there's not really much that they've done with it since then. So I think they need to have it, like, if they're going to make another movie, which I think they shouldn't, but if they have to, they probably will because of the money. Perhaps, you know, just sit down, think of something solid, something that's going to maybe change the franchise, or just like turn everything else on its head, and not just retcon something that we saw happen in the first movie anyway, which required way less effort from the characters in those movies to make it this big thing. Just let it die. You've made heaps of money off this. Just sit on that like a dragon, enjoy the rest of your life. Anyway.
No, that's more than fair. To your point about Leigh Whannell and Angus, is it Angus Sampson who plays the other one?
Angus Sampson,
Yeah, I love him. He's always posting funny stuff on Instagram. So previously in the movies, I didn't like them, and I actually missed them in this one, because I think during the first one, the second one, maybe the third, I think, and the fourth one, but honestly, I haven't watched 3, 4, or 5 in a long time. And I did feel like they were sorely missed in this installment, and I felt they were trying to position the neighbor characters where it was like the odd old couple, and she's saying to the husband like, put your hand up, you know. I thought they could have been used more in this movie rather than the one or two scenes I actually had while living or in the further. But there's another part of this which I didn't know how to necessarily bring this up, because there's always ongoing debate about like forced diversity in movies. You know, you have one character that's a different skin color and people lose their fucking minds about it. But where I'm getting to with this is the character, the clairvoyant / the tattoo artist. I don't understand why the location of her was put into a tattoo studio. So again, thinking that maybe they just brought in the tattoo studio to try and seem more cool and hip and taken from Final Destination Bloodlines. To me, it would have made much more sense if she was one of the neighbors in the neighborhood. Because you think about how the focus on the start of this movie was the mum and the daughter being like, oh, these are our friendly neighbors, and this is our neighbor who babysits the young daughter but gets killed at the end of the movie. And then the three acolytes are terrorizing the people in the neighborhood and actually do end up killing the elderly couple. But then this clairvoyant, like, it would have made much more sense, especially with bringing Elise's character in, to have her in the neighborhood itself so that she didn't have to travel far. And that would have made sense as to why Elise not uses, like possesses Claire to contact the main character. So it was a bit like, what was the actual reasoning for making her character as a tattoo artist? Like, anyway, very confusing.
Sorry, can I touch on that?
Yeah.
So I reckon that would actually piss me off more if it was like directly in the neighborhood, because I thought it was already a stretch. The fact that like wherever this connection between Elise and the outside world would happen to be in town, and everything happens in this town, because obviously like you would assume the further doesn't just directly, like the further would be a huge place. Why does all of this shit happen within driving distance? So I didn't mind that, but like I was already thinking, oh, well, that's convenient that it's like just up the road. So if it was like in the same neighborhood, that would be too much. I reckon I would be like, no, this isn't all just happening right around the corner from each other. It makes no sense. Like I don't think I've ever seen a movie, well, not a horror movie anyway. I've seen it in like adventure movies and stuff where they need to go and see like a specialist to like find the missing scroll or whatever. But like I've never seen a horror movie where it's like, they've gotten me in touch with this, psychic or this like ghost person. Anyway, I'm jumping on a flight, and then I've got a connecting flight and I've got to go over there to see them. Or just like, I'm going to jump on Zoom because they live on the other side of the country. It's all just like conveniently close together. It's like how every disaster movie, it starts in New York, like, it's annoying.
Deep impact. Yeah. It's like, I just imagine like Gal Gadot yelling out to the neighbors across the street, Max Lord, you need to give me a stone. Like, it's just,
Galil, no.
There's just so many funny plot holes in this movie. The other thing that I really didn't like, and I hate this about most horror movies because I don't feel they do it right. This one didn't do it right either. The use of paradox time travel, where adult her was preventing young her from seeing her mum kill herself. I rolled my eyes so fucking far, I could see into my own brain. I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? Of course that's how they do it, but anyway.
The worst, sorry, I was just going to say the most fucking egregious that was in Insidious 2, I thought. Because they tried to make it look like, ooh, we were planning ahead, because there was a scene where somebody knocked on the door in the first movie. And it's like, no, that was just, it's a creepy thing. Someone knocks on the door and you went, ooh, we can make it look like we planned this all along. And shit, it pissed me off too, but it was definitely worse than Insidious 2.
Yeah. There was another Insidious sequel, I can't remember if it was 3, 4, or 5, where they go back in time as well to when young Dalton is in the attic and he's on the ladder and he sees something in the corner that we don't see, and he falls off the ladder, whatever, and then it's revealed he saw his dad, or he saw Elise, or his old, I don't know, I can't remember. I was just like, here we go again with the time paradoxes. Like, nah. Now, before we get into ratings, we are going to play a new game for the podcast where I'll ask each of you a question where the focus of the question rhymes with the title of the movie. So, Insidious, of course. And for those who aren't gay or terminally online like I am, this is a reference to the Tyra Banks show, where she would ask ridiculous questions to her celebrity guests that rhymed with her name. So for example, there's a video of her interviewing Miley Cyrus, and she says dumb shit like,
Dryly, Cyrus. Do you ever really get like sweaty? And how do you prevent that?
and it's so fucking unhinged and stupid that I have to put this into the podcast from now on. So, BP, I'll start with you. Insidious. Do you think this is the best film of the Insidious series, and why?
Hell no. My favorites are like, I think my favorites are 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 6.
Nice.
Sorry.
Coop. Insidious. Which Insidious movie do you consider to be the worst?
That's a tough one, but I'm gonna have to say the third one. I think, yeah, probably the third or the fourth one were probably like the absolute worst of this series. But I think the whole Insidious series at this point is Sinsidious and belongs in the Binsidious.
Fair. BP. Linsidious. Aside from the Insidious series, what other movies have you seen actress Lin Shaye, who appears as Elise, appear in?
I watched one not long ago. I was going to recommend it for the podcast. It's like a 2001 horror.
Dead End?
And it's... Yes, that's it.
Yes.
I really like that. Dead End. What else have I seen her in? I think off the top of my head that would be the only one. I feel like I have probably seen her in something else, but just didn't recognize her. No offense, because like she probably looked a bit younger and I didn't pick up, or the hair was different or something like that. But yeah, Dead End I did recently watch and I really liked her in that, and I do recommend we should do that podcast.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I know that she was in Dumb and Dumber at the start, where she plays the owner of the pet salon, and Harry has like ruined all the dogs, covering them in like mustard and like fast food and everything, and she's just like, huh? And she's in it for like 10 seconds at most. She's also in There's Something About Mary, which I haven't seen for like over 25 years. And she's like very like tanned and has like crazy hair and everything. But yeah, I can't think of anything else.
No.
Coop, Insidious. Should we put a pin in this franchise?
Yes, I think it needs to be Finsidious.
Nice. BP, Sinsidious. Should a sequel take place in the Sin City of Las Vegas?
I mean, that'd be cool. I mean, if Scream can go to Canada, aka New York, then why can't Insidious go to Las Vegas? I don't know. What's the thing with the Coca-Cola sign in Sydney?
Oh, King's Cross.
King's Cross, yeah, we go to King's Cross.
Why not?
I'm open to it. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Coop, Twinsidious. Which villain from the Insidious movies do you most identify with?
Which villain did you say?
Yeah.
Ooh.
And to give you a recap, there's Red-Faced Demon from the first movie. There's the Long-Haired Fiend, which is also in the first two. Man Who Can't Breathe from number 3. Keyface from number 4, which is a funny name. And then there's a bunch of other random smaller villains, like the Smiling Woman with a shotgun. You've got the Acolytes. And last but not least, Billy Ray Miley Cyrus.
As much as I hated the character, I'm gonna have to go with fucking Darth Vader, because I have asthma and sometimes I struggle to breathe and need my inhaler. So I've unfortunately got to go with that horrible fucking villain.
Same. BP, last question for you. Cringiest. What part in any of the Insidious movies has made you cringe the most, and why?
Well, there was a quote in this one which I didn't say, and I wrote it down, and it was about the police officer I think when he got pushed against the car, and who was it? I think it was the tattoo girl saying Nick's not responding. And she's looking out the window and like,
yeah.
And I thought, no shit, he's not responding. He's been slammed against a cop car. What do you think? That's probably like one of the cringest ones. God, I'd have to think back. What's something cringe? I'm gonna have to go with that because that's like the most recent memory of something cringe. Because I just thought like pointing out the obvious. Yeah. Oh, and maybe the CGI in this one, that was pretty cringe. Like at the end, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's more than fair. Coop,
Can I ask-
likewise, same question. Cringe
Oh,
cinemas.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, excellent. I was going to say, can I add one in on that one? You mentioned before about how like the picture falls down and the little girl's picture's in front of it. Why was it was like a health bar? Did you notice that? It was like the blood was coming up like it was a health bar,
It's
like
like
it was
half
the
of the
fucking
face, wasn't
game.
it?
Yeah, exactly. And then on the daughter's one, it was only like up to her nose. So then it's just like, oh, we've nearly reached the top, and then you get the prize at the end. I thought that was hilariously bad. So that definitely made me cringe.
I couldn't work out as to, because I'm watching and I'm thinking, how does the blood actually affect the people with the portraits or whatever? Like, yeah, movie magic and all that. But why didn't they just cover the whole fucking portrait from the start? Why was it always in levels? Which,
None of these people have heard of pen and paper. I mean, you've got the tattoo artist doing all this shit on a grapefruit, and you've got these old fucks using blood like a health bar on fucking portraits. Like, these people aren't okay.
it makes me wonder if like the writers and director of this movie have like they must have had like a really bad experience with the dentist as well, because the whole focus is on like, let's put in the thing that like pulls your mouth apart, the weird handle thing or whatever. And like the focus on plaque and everything. I'm like, did fucking Colgate sponsor this movie as like ooh, you need to brush your teeth daily? Like, it was just so weird and bizarre. Like, the focus on teeth is probably my most cringe part of this. Now we'll get into ratings. So I've been going back and forth on this as to where to actually rate this, also taking into consideration that I'd probably rate the previous 3 entries lower and the first 2 entries higher, but I'm just going to go on my gut instinct. So I am going to give this 7 out of 10, but the score of this is largely driven by the look and feel of it as opposed to the actual content. So if this had, say, you know, what's another term for mid? If it had just like generic look and feel, stuff like that, like bad camera angles, that type of stuff, this would drop down to a 5. So yeah, I feel like 7's probably the right spot. BP, what about yourself?
The only reason you gave it 7 was because your letterbox is 3.5.
Did you see the review though?
Yes, I did, and I was like, and when Coop was like, "I'll let you know tomorrow," and I actually thought Coop might really like this, and that's why I was like, "Wow." To be honest, I've been going back and forth. I originally had 6. I think 5.5. 5.5. Grapefruits. There you go. 5.5 grapefruits out of 10 is more than generous. Like I said, this would be on par with number 4, but I really need to watch both of them back to back as being which one is worse in the franchise. I only really liked number 5 because the family had come back, and I did like it was a full circle moment sort of thing, and seeing the original actor, the boy Dalton, coming back as an adult. I thought that was really cool. So 5.5 out of 10. Like I said, there's really no scares in this at all. Lin Shaye is in it, very brief. Like I said, she wasn't really in it long enough. Didn't move the bar forward. Yes, Jacob Chase does a good job of directing it. And there's like 1 or 2 scenes that are really good, as we mentioned, but overall as a movie and moving the franchise forward, it doesn't. And it has really low replay value. If I think of all the 6 films right now, this is like the one I do not want to watch again for a very, very long time. So 5.5 grapefruits out of 10, more than generous. If you're a fan of the film, franchise, see it. If you're not, you can skip it and you won't miss anything.
Yeah, agreed. If you haven't seen any Insidious movies, start with the first one. And if you like the first 2, maybe continue on with the third, but actually, if anything, go 1, 2, 5, and then do whatever the others. Yeah. Coop, what about yourself? What do you give this movie?
I'm going to give it 4 lazy volume scares out of 10, and they can thank me for them. I'm not the target audience at all. I do not like this franchise. Please let it be over.
Nice. With our combined scores, it's actually the perfect average of 5.5 out of 10. So, yeah. It's always interesting. I knew straight away after watching this movie, I'm like, I bet I'm going to give it the highest score. Coop will give it the lowest. But BP, I thought you would have given it more in line with Coops as opposed to in the middle of ours. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's bearable, but like that's about it. So that's more than 5 if it's bearable.
Yeah.
Not much though.
Listeners and viewers, thank you very much for watching. Shortly, I'll be releasing my ranking of the Insidious movie, so keep an eye out for that one. Like, comment, subscribe, yada yada yada. And if you hated this episode,